Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Carrie Bradley. She is a speaker, author, and international coach, focuses her work on empowering women with money. And now today, as a single mother of two boys, she now centers her work on fighting financial inequality by giving women actionable resources to better their money situation, and has helped hundreds of women negotiate their salaries, pay off debt, build savings, and grow their wealth and legacies. Welcome to the show, Carrie.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Carrie. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn from you about financial freedom, about all those things, how you started your investing career at age of 17, took financial education without degree, and grew your network to over $700,000 through the stock market, venture capital, being capitalism, and real estate. We learn all about that, and that's why if you can tell us a bit about your journey, your background, so that other listeners know who they are listening to.
Yes, absolutely. So, like you mentioned, I started investing around the age of 17, thankfully, because of my father, who gave me the literacy that a lot of people don't have access to. And so that's when I started investing in the stock market. Then, years later, I took my hand into the game of real estate. And so now I have been able to build my portfolio to what you mentioned at 700,000. But the interesting thing about this is that about 4 years ago, I was in a marriage that ended up dissolving. And at the time, I didn't have any idea where my next paycheck was going to come from. I was a stay-at-home mom. I had just started my business. And so in that time period, I was very financially insecure. All of the assets that we had accumulated were now in question. And so that led me down this path to really focusing on my mindset and learning how to deal with the fears and the questions and the uncertainty around my financial situation. And through that process of really learning how to trust myself, how to create strategies, and to really, work towards I guess I would say my relationship with money, from fear to abundance, or another word I like to call is scarcity. It's that feeling of not having enough. And so we're doing that inner work that then allowed me to pay off both of my houses within 4 months of each other. I was able to scale my income to six figures through my current business. And then on my 42nd birthday this year, that's when I hit financial independence, which essentially means that if I wanted to, I have the option to not work. I obviously will keep working because I love what I do, but now it's afforded me so much freedom, and I was able to create that in a very short amount of time because of the work that I did on my mindset to think differently about money and then produce the outcomes that I was looking for around financial freedom. So that's a little bit about my story. I hope I answered all of your questions.
Absolutely, absolutely, Carrie. To understand it better, you had some knowledge about it because your dad talked about it. You learned about it. Later on, you did not utilize it because you were married. You were happy being a stay-at-home mom, if I understand. And at that point in time, then how did you get started with this? When a thing like separation from a partner happens, and all these things that can happen, any other thing can happen. At that point in time, your mind just does not work. And here, in your case, it was about knowing something about it before, but right now your mind was filled with a lot of fear, maybe self-doubt. I don't know. How did you then tackle all these things while
Mhm.
going through so many changes at the same time, and then get started? Because you talked about 4 months. Within 4 months, you achieved
Oh,
a lot of success.
sorry.
What was the background about it?
Yes. Well, and you're right that I did have the foundation of financial literacy. Like I already knew quite a bit about money, but when I went through that separation, that's when everything was called into question, and I was faced with potentially losing the majority of those assets. So I had to really learn how to advocate for myself to make sure that it was fair and equal. However, having said that, prior to that time, I dealt with a lot of those fears of like, what if there's never enough? Even though your bank account can reflect millions of dollars, there are so many people who still have that feeling and that fear of, if I get to this amount, then I'll feel okay. And that was also true for me. So, in that time period where I wasn't sure how, were any of these assets that I established going to come back to me, and not having a predictable income. I had no child support, no alimony, no real sources of income. That's when I really worked on my mindset and trying to essentially let go of controlling every single thing. A lot of people with money, they tend to overanalyze their spreadsheets and their bank accounts, and it can really cause for a lot of stress that disallows them from actually attaining financial freedom and feeling that freedom internally too. I mean, I tell people all the time, wealth is an inside job. It starts with how do you feel about yourself? How do you enjoy your money? Do you know how to spend it well? Do you know how to align it with your values and your priorities? And so anyways, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but all of that kind of culminated into this time period of uncertainty. But then because I was working deeply within myself to feel that enoughness, to feel that security inside, it then started to manifest in my outer world in these outcomes that I've described to you, allowing me to hit financial freedom. So that's what I teach people now in my work, is how to do the inner work and obviously use some strategy and some financial tools to help you get there. But a large part of it is the mindset piece itself.
Absolutely. And you answered whatever I wanted to know, because I want to understand the mind of the person, not after one has become successful, but while they were in the biggest challenges of their life. That is where a lot of people, lot of women also may be in their different stages of life and tackling those issues. And they want answers from those people who have dealt with that. So, in terms of mindset, how did you start? Did you start looking at financial freedom first, or did you start looking at paying the bills first, getting back on your feet? How did that start working for you? Because, and how would you put your success as? Because it was a very fast, seems to be a very fast paced success. Was it hard work? Was it your earlier understanding, or was it plain luck? How would you like to put it, Gary?
Great question. Well, I don't really, do I believe in luck? I don't think so. I mean, I guess in a way it was my commitment to solving this problem that I perceived that I had, to bring in a higher income, to be strategic about my assets so that they can work for me versus me having to trade all of my time for it. And so there was some strategy involved, but a large part of it again was coming back to any time that I felt like that fear, insecurity creep in. This is what I share in the talks that I give around the country, is that every time I noticed those thoughts that I was having, like, what am I going to do? And I could see that happening. I consciously chose to not give that thought my attention and to instead pivot over here and to say, you know what? I don't know. I can't control all these things. So I'm going to let go of all the things I can't control and trust. And as I did that, it freed up so much energy to actually focus on the creation of what I wanted, which was more financial security. And so that happened through, obviously working very, very consistently on my business, my coaching business. And I had some other side income streams as well that offered a little bit of stability in that time that eventually started to grow. But really, if you boil it down to it, so much of that change was through working on my thoughts, which then changed the way that I felt, which changed the way that I showed up in the world with more confidence. And that, when you show up with confidence, people are interested in spending time with you, and then there's more opportunities that come your way, and it just kind of opens up your world for so much more abundance, is what I call, or wealth or prosperity, however you want to frame it. So I'm not sure, did I answer your question around the, because it
You
is a,
are, you are. Don't worry about that. You are. Otherwise, I will ask you any other more question on that. But you are certainly. It's the mind that matters,
yes.
and that is what is more important. You talk about mindset, and as I put it, it's the mind that matters. One more thing I want to understand from you is you talked about abundance. You talked about that sometimes you have millions of dollars in your bank and you may not be out of fear. Then how does one set that target? How enough is enough for oneself? Should they decide first? Should they put numbers? People, when they're dealing with numbers, they also think about that as a target. How much is enough for one person? How did you
Mhm.
decide for yourself? Did you plan on going to 700 $1,000 and into your bank account, into your assets, or did you start thinking, okay, let me think big but no number to it?
Great question. I think it's a both and. So, for example, I had some clear goals of, I'd like to hit six figures income. So that was something that I really wanted to create in my life. And at the same time, I was just kind of also staying open to all the possibilities of how that might work. And um, so anyways, that did happen. It happened in a very unexpected way. And a lot of that came through like what I was talking about, the mindset piece. And so it's kind of this, you want to show up and do the things that you've chosen to do. Having said that, I also believe that doing work that you enjoy and being aligned with the values that you care the most deeply about, it doesn't really feel like hard work in getting there because it's enjoyable, right? And so a lot of people think that, oh, I can't do what I love and make good money at the same time. I disagree with that. So I think, that comes into play, that you can make money in the ways that you want. But in terms of numbers, I think, you know, it's so relative to each person and their situation because, like I said, there are millionaires that I've met who are deeply unhappy because they're trying to prove something through the accumulation of their assets or increasing their net worth. Conversely, I've been to places like Africa where some of the poorest people seem to be the most happiest, generous people around. So I think I tell people all the time that success really is an inside job. It's how you view the world, how you feel about your life. Can you look around and see everything that you're grateful for, regardless of how much it is or isn't? And that is what cultivates that inner space of wealth. And from there, I mean, once you get to that point, it's like you've arrived, I think, at peace and happiness and joy. So I think the numbers can play a factor, but they're not the end all be all because, like I said, you could end up at a $2 million and still be disappointed or chasing the next thing.
Right. You help a lot of women and who are, either they have got lots of education or less education or no education. In your case, when you wanted to get out into the market and maybe it did not matter to anyone outside, how did it ever come occur in your mind that you do not have a degree and you are going to talk to all these people, especially, you may be very confident at that point in time, but whenever you are going through different phases in life, you start questioning about things that you may not have, not looking at things that you already have. Did it occur to you? If yes, how did you deal with that?
Oh, yes, 100%. This is what I call imposter syndrome. It's that feeling of like, am I qualified? How do I know that I'm qualified to say this or to do this or to share this? And at this point, I really believe that your life experience is your resume. And I understand there are certain jobs that need specific qualifications for certain things. But as a whole, when you've lived through so many experiences, of which I have at this point, it teaches you about life. And so part of that was, understanding and recognizing I feel very insecure. I don't have a college degree. I thought I needed that to prove to people that I was credible. But actually, I don't really see it that way anymore. In fact, some of the most successful people in our culture are haven't had college degrees. I think Bill Gates dropped out of college. I think, if I'm
Yes.
correct, maybe Steve Jobs, like some of the most, Mark Zuckerberg
Yes.
of
Steve
Facebook.
Jobs.
So it's really, I love challenging the idea that you need that to be successful. And at the same time, um, working through your own insecurities, and just to show up and to say, I do have value here. I have a perspective. I have life experience. It might not look like a college degree, but there are other things that I can bring to the table, and reminding yourself of those assets that you do have internally or from your experience, I think can really help you to show up with that kind of confidence, even when you don't necessarily feel like it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Carrie. Now, we are talking about financial freedom, but you talk also about personal freedom. And
Yeah.
personal freedom includes financial freedom and emotional freedom. Help us understand this personal freedom part of it, and how does these two freedoms, emotional freedom and financial freedom, it encompasses within it, so that we understand what you actually want to say. And how do you get, when financial freedom is, where do you get the emotional freedom in this whole journey of money?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Gosh, I just love your questions. They're so great. So yes, it goes hand in hand. It's all connected. And in fact, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I actually just released a book last Wednesday. It's called Dare to Desire. And it's about both of these things. It's about a woman's journey and her away from the fear, which is an emotion, or that's connected to thoughts, and how that prevented her from creating the life of freedom that she desired. So part of that was financial. There's a chapter on financial freedom, but also it's largely about her journey in changing the way that she saw herself. So, some of the beliefs that we grow up with, they cause us to feel things like guilt or shame or fear, and those are emotional states that keep you playing a smaller game. They keep you more stuck and frustrated with life and not able to achieve and pursue your goals. And so what I call emotional freedom is becoming aware of your emotions. What are they? Where did they come from? And then challenging some of those perceptions to say, actually, do you need to carry guilt? Right? Where did that come from? And so helping people to really work through the sort of negative emotions or the heavier ones, so that they feel more empowered to know what to do with those when they show up. That frees up so much energy, again, to focus on your goals, to achieve a higher level of success. And so they go hand in hand with each other. It's like, when you master your emotions and your mindset, then you will often notice the financial freedom comes as a result, if that's something that you're pursuing. So yeah, everything's connected, but they're all a part, I think, of a holistic journey of freedom.
Holistic journey of freedom. Let's understand it a bit more. You talk about the power of emotions, and at the same time, you are into investing into stock market and all. How do these two things calibrate? How do you calibrate these things? Can you invest with emotions? How
Mm.
do you then create that power of emotions into your life when you are getting so much deep into investing and all those things related to money?
Yes, right. Well, a lot of financial advisors and people in that industry will say things like, keep your emotions out of your money, right? And I think by that they mean don't react. So for example, if the stock market dips, don't pull all your money out right then, because you're going to incur a loss. Just ride it out. So I do think there is value in being restraining yourself from reacting to market changes and corrections. Having said that, the way that I like to teach people about using their emotions or their emotional power to create the outcomes that they want is largely, again, centered on the mindset piece. Because when you're focused in the direction that you want, when you're not focused on feeling bad about your situation or worried that you're not going to have enough or stressed about paying the bills, if you redirect your mind, that changes your emotional state. And so I tell people, I want you to imagine and to feel into what do you think freedom will feel like when you do have it? what emotions come up? Is it joy? Is it pleasure? Is it ease, peace of mind? And when you can tap into those emotions, you can actually start to visualize that and work with your nervous system to integrate those feelings now, which then, you know, it creates the energy to then move forward and actually create those outcomes. So there both is this: don't react to the market, right? Be thoughtful and mindful about your decisions, but also know that, like, you're not just limited to dropping money in it and investing in this compounding interest way. You can actually use your emotions and your mind to create much bigger outcomes at a lower rate of time. And this is where it kind of gets into quantum physics, which we don't have to go down that trail, but there is a lot of power in people's emotions that I don't think they realize that they have to tap into. Did that
Absolutely.
make sense?
Yes, yes, indeed, indeed, Carrie. Let me understand. Nowadays you talked about freedom, financial freedom, and you said financial freedom is when you can choose not to work. But since you love your work, you will continue to work. A lot of people, especially a lot of young people, want to retire. Earlier it was 40, now 30, maybe less. And they want to be at the beach and do whatever. That's their choice. That sometimes some people can have that sort of a desire. Nothing wrong with that. But what would you like to tell them about, that aspect of financial freedom, about retirement and all? What would be your uh, take on this particular aspect?
Yeah. So if I understand you correctly, the people who want to retire early, what would I share with them that
Yeah.
would advise them? Yeah. So it's interesting. I spend a lot of time in circles of people who are in that movement. It's called FIRE, Financial Independence Retire Early. And I speak at a lot of their events. And what I notice is a lot of people in that sphere who want to get there sooner, they tend to really restrict themselves. They're very, very frugal. And that, in a way, yeah, can speed up your path to financial independence. But oftentimes they're not enjoying their life because they're not spending much money on themselves. And so, what I would say to them is to really work to enjoy some of your money, right? And to think strategically about, when you're in your 20s, where are you going to get the most value from your money? You're young. Maybe you want to go on experiences. Maybe you want to travel the world. Spend some of your money in that place when you're young versus waiting till you're retired at 65 when you may not have the health to do that. So thinking about, what are your highest values and spend some money there without restricting yourself so much to like win this race of getting to FI early. So that's the pattern that I see play out the most, is to to kind of rob yourself of in the enjoyment of life now while you're delaying all that gratification to get to that goal. So yeah, I advocate for what I call putting pleasure into your portfolio. Not restricting, not eating ramen noodles until you die because you're saving so much money.
Right, right. Now, let me ask you, you are the mother of two boys.
Yes.
They have seen your difficult times. This is what I understand. Maybe it's wrong. They have also seen you successful.
Mhm.
How, or maybe they have only seen you successful, or I don't know, how have you told them about your journey, about the success part or about the difficult part? How have you told them about money itself? Is there a particular way that people who are less successful, more successful, should tell about financial freedom, about money to their kids in today's time, because they have to walk their own journey in their own way?
Yes, that is so true. And I'm very open and honest with my kids about my journey and the challenges that I've had to deal with and what that's been like for me. And at the same time, since they were very young, I've tried to educate them on how to manage their money, how to make it work for them. So I remember when they were very young, we would come up with all kinds of ideas that they could make money, because very few kids feel like they can actually make money. You're not allowed to work until you're 14 or 16. So we have always come up with creative ideas like baking bread and selling that, or cutting grass, or maybe you're going to sell some plants from the garden that we have. And they've been very successful in that way. And so I think, there is this, as a parent, you both want to empower them, give them the tools and the resources, let them witness you living by example, and at the same time, letting go of control and letting them make their own mistakes. My younger son, he's 11, just I think about a week ago, I was trying to give him guidance on a purchase that he wanted to make that I just didn't think was really wise. And he said to me, he said, well, why don't you just let me learn from my own mistakes? And I thought, well, that's so wise. I guess, like I'll allow you to do that. Better that they make those mistakes when they're young and you can support them through that than later on when they don't have as much of that. So I think it's this balance of, living by example, showing them some things, and then also giving them the freedom to make their choices and to learn through the quote unquote failures that we all learn from. And yeah, cross your fingers that they make it.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is so many things that we have learned. Let's learn a bit more from your book, Dare to Desire. You showed that book. You can show it
Yeah.
nicely this time, and so that and let's learn a bit more from that.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, it's called Dare to Desire. And whoops, I think I got it. It's
Yeah,
actually on Amazon right now, just released last Wednesday. And it's called A Woman's Journey from Fear to Freedom. And it's a combination of both fiction and self-help. I kind of broke the rules with that and I just combined them both. So it's about a woman, and a large part of this is based on my story. But I've also added fictional elements to it and pulled from like some of my client stories and their journeys as well into this character, and what it took for her to really start to allow herself to ask, what do I want? She was in a situation where she was raised to think about everyone else first and to deny her needs. And that really resulted in, a lot of anxiety and depression and not knowing what she was here to do. And so she's listening to her desires, and then it takes her on this journey of total transformation in her life by actually tuning in to that question of what she wanted. And so with each chapter, it's following the character named Kelly, and then as she's going through these challenges, the self-help information it goes along with what she's experiencing. So there's that practical aspect of like, this is what you can do in your life that Kelly used in her life that can help you work through any fears or doubts, or if you feel trapped, here's something that you can do to start that journey yourself.
absolutely. And who is this book for? Is it for only women, or even men can learn from it?
I was asked this yesterday on an interview, and quite frankly, I think it's for anybody who feels a little bit stuck or who feels like maybe there's more to life and I just don't know. I need to see what's possible, because it's largely an inspirational piece with some practical tools and insights. But I think anybody can find themselves in the character of Kelly, even though it has very much a feminine feel to it. I think anybody who's feeling like, oh, am I stuck in a job that I don't like and I don't know how to get out of it or see beyond that? Or am I stuck in a relationship that really isn't serving me anymore? So I think anybody who's in that place will find nuggets of wisdom or insight that they can apply to their situation to help them kind of get into that bigger level of life of their dreams or their desires that they maybe left on the table years ago.
Absolutely. There is, as I said, there is much to learn from you about all these things, Carrie, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn from you, learn about your journey, learn from your book. What's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go check out my website, which is carriebradley.com. If you're interested in my book, there's obviously a link on my website, but you can just go into Amazon, type in Dare to Desire and find that there. I'm also very active on Instagram. I haven't yet changed my married name, which is Carrie Doan Coaching. So I'm still in I just recently changed my name back to what it originally was. So my branding is slowly starting to reflect that. So people can also find me on Instagram as well. And I'd love to have a conversation about all things freedom and growth.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Are we still live?
Yes, we are. No, yeah, we are.